I'm liking your flag, Oliver.
Thank you very much. I couldn't get the background to work, so I thought I'd better try some different solution.
You see, this is innovative. We shall all have one.
Well, they're not expensive. eBay does a good price on them, I will say. I could act as an agent if you want.
Oh, yes. Or I'll wait for my bonus. Oh, no, we don't get one, do we?
You got badges last time, you know, you can't have everything.
Yeah, but that was for 4 years of commitment. That was a hefty price to pay.
I'll make it 7 o'clock, Chairman.
Are we ready?
Yes, we are. 7 o'clock, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, good evening and welcome to the 225th meeting of the Council. Before I start the meeting proper, I would invite those who wish to join me in prayer. Almighty God, the source of knowledge and understanding, guide the minds of those who are about to take counsel together on matters concerning this county, that in their debate and in their decisions, they may faithfully discharge the duties of their office and promote the health, safety, and well-being of those they seek to serve. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Before I move into the agenda proper, just a brief outline of how we will conduct this evening's meeting. Microphones will be set at mute, except for mine and that of the Chief Executive. I don't know if you would like to comment, Mark, on the way you would proceed on this one.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to remind people to use their electronic hands, as it gives an order of people putting their hands up. And also, just to aid us this evening, I've asked governance to help us bring members in as well, because there's multiple hands and people, and just in case people struggle with their electronic hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And again, just to remind members, you will be invited to speak once on an item for a maximum of 5 minutes. That will include questions, and any answers to those questions will be dealt with by the proposer at the end of the debate. And so the votes will be recorded by governance. So if we now move into the agenda proper, item 1, apologies. Have we any?
With an apology from Councillor Cross.
Thank you.
And Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. So that's two apologies. So we'll be voting to 25 tonight. Chairman's announcements have been circulated, not that there's been much activity there. And so if we move on to item 3, I think the leader has an announcement to make.
I do. Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like to announce, obviously, that Gordon will be stepping down from Cabinet on the 23rd of March. And at this point, I'd just like to sort of outline, he joined Cabinet in July 2018 and became a valuable member of the team with his business skills that he brought not only to finance, but the operation of Rutland County Council generally. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to him as my deputy as well for the support. And I look forward to working with him in the future as a backbencher, which will be an interesting time for all, I suspect. And when Gordon steps down, he will leave Cabinet on the 23rd of March. But as from the 24th of February, Karen Payne will be joining Cabinet and working with Gordon for that duration of time. I will take over the planning portfolio on the 24th of February. And as from the 1st of March, Lucy Stevenson will be stepping into the role of Deputy Leader. And Gordon Brown will remain responsible for Housing Infrastructure Fund until he steps down from Cabinet on the 23rd of March. So any questions or concerns, please let me know afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I think, Chief Exec, you may have something.
That's correct, Chair. Yes, just something on COVID. I mean, we've heard today from about the government's 4-step plan, which will include reopening schools on the 8th of March. But at the same time, people will have noticed that our local figures have again been on the rise. We've now moved back into the top 10 of local authority areas, and that may create some concern in the community. This is just to say that the majority of that rise is down to another round of testing at prison, which we hope that outbreak will be under control soon. And in fact, community transmission has fallen during this period. And to support maintaining the lower transmission in the community, we've launched today our asymptomatic testing site up at the OEP. This is predominantly at this point for people who need to leave home for work and unable to access testing at work. But no doubt it will take on a wider role as we move through the government's 4-step plan. And I'd just like to take this opportunity probably to say thank you to the staff who've been directed from their normal roles into both planning and delivery of that testing site. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other members of Cabinet? Any announcements? I'm not aware of any. Thank you. And therefore we move on to item 4, declarations of interest. And on that one, if you do declare an interest, then you will be muted and you please refrain from contacting any other members during that time. Withdraw from the meeting. On item 7, the the actual fees and charges. I am declaring an interest. I will withdraw while that item is debated and voted on, and hand over to the Vice Chairman, Nick Beggy, at that point. Are there any other member interests, please?
Councillor Baines, we have Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Oxley. I ask Councillor Stevenson to go first.
Thank you. I'm declaring an interest on item 7, specifically report number 05//2021, covering our fees and charges. I have a business that uses an A board and is covered under that, so I will abstain from that vote. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Oxley.
Yes, the same item, Mr. Chairman, 05/2021, fees and charges. As a funeral celebrant, I do a lot of work at cemeteries, and if we get into any debate with regards to fees and charges, then I will leave. Well, I won't leave the meeting, but I shall certainly cut down all references.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Oxley. I should probably have made it clear that my declaration, like Councillor Stevenson, related to A boards. So if we could now move to item 5, petitions, deputations from members of the public. I'm informed there are none. And equally on agenda item 6, questions from members of the council. Again, I understand that there are none. So the report from the Cabinet, item 7, at this point, I would therefore hand over to Councillor Beggy for certainly the first item on the agenda item 7.
Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated. Firstly, could I hand over to Councillor Gordon Brown to propose and take report from Gordon Brown. Do you have any, Gordon?
Yes, I do, Chair. Chair, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to present my 4th and sadly final budget to Council. I'm sure all members will support me when I express my appreciation to our Finance Director, Mr. Della Rocca, in bringing together the reports which are in front of you this evening. This is despite the impact of COVID over the last 12 months. He and his team have worked very long hours, not just to deliver this budget, but also they've done the work on business grants, council support. I could list a whole list of items with their new responsibilities. But importantly, thank you to them, and I'm sure you'll all join me on that point. Chair, I believe this is a sound budget on which the county can and will move forward as we come out of our 3rd lockdown and the other restrictions that our residents have suffered during the last 12 months and for the next 4 months. The reports are fully supported by Cabinet, by my Cabinet colleagues, and by my successor, finance portfolio holder in the future, Councillor Karen Payne. I'm not planning to go through the detail of the report since members have already had the opportunity to do that in the 2 public scrutiny meetings that were held during January. No changes have been made either to the fees and charges report, the Treasury Management Strategy, the Capital Investment Strategy, all of which were considered by scrutiny. And I note there are no recommendations from either of those meetings to Cabinet. Unless members consider otherwise, I propose the recommendations and that we consider them en bloc. But I shall restrict my opening remarks to the changes which have been made to the budget following its publication in January, and also the feedback from consultation with residents and businesses. I believe there's general support from Council for the expenditure plan presented, and of course we will decide upon the council tax when we consider item 8 on our agenda later this evening. But before I do that, I'd just like to take a few moments to draw your attention to the Local Government Intelligence Unit report, which was published earlier today.
If I may, Councillor Brown, my apologies for interrupting. My understanding from Councillor Beggy is that we're taking the fees and charges item as the first item to enable Councillor Baines and Stevenson to then participate in the later ones. So if we could restrict ourselves to that one, please.
Fine, I can do. I'll leave my other comments then. There are other comments which do relate to fees and charges, but well, they don't. I'll make sure I take them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I believe that you are proposing that. Please can I have a seconder so I can open the floor to questions? Governance, I can't see hands because I've only got my small box open. If anybody could see a second.
Oh, we've got Councillor Rozelle, who is seconding.
Thank you very much. I'll now open the floor to members for questions, please. Again, governance, sorry, I can't see any hands because I've got my...
No, I'm sorry. I'm just having a quick look. I don't think there are any hands up at the moment.
Councillor Dale, actual hand up, Chair.
Sorry, I don't know where the hand is. Can I ask why, as one of the largest employers in the county, we are ignoring our Director of Finance's suggestion of 5%, which, reading what he has said, we need. Why are we going for 3%?
Councillor, we're discussing fees and charges at this moment, not the council.
Sorry, I'll come back.
That's all right. Just to reiterate what Mr. Horsfield said, our monitoring officer, we'll be taking each report separately. We'll be coming to council tax last. So this is fees and charges. Thank you.
But thank you for the warning, Jeff. Much appreciated. Have we got any questions? Governance or
McCartney has her hand up.
Councillor Mccartney?
Thanks, Vice Chair. All I wish to do is reiterate the comments I made at scrutiny, which is that I think our fees and charges could be higher, and in particular I raised the issue of the green bin collection charge, which I felt seemed cheap and was only covering costs, and I felt at a time of financial pinching we could perhaps be trying to do a little bit more than just covering costs, but I was simply raising that in order that it was minuted in the meeting, that's all. I felt it's had adequate discussion at scrutiny, but if anyone wants to add anything to that, then it would be welcome.
Thank you, Abby. Councillor Brown-Gordon, would you like to respond, or?
Can I respond to any questions or comments at the end of this item, please?
Okay,
Can I propose the motion on fees and charges?
We have Councillor Andrew Brown, who has his hand up.
Andrew, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's just a small anomaly I found in the Appendix 3, locally set fees. It says inspection of documents. It's gone up from £3 to £3.50, and afterwards it says increased by 4%. Well, that's actually increased by 16%. I mean, that's obviously a mistake, but are there more mistakes like that? I mean, it's only a small thing, but it needs to be right, doesn't it?
Anybody like to respond? Is there any more questions? And then Gordon can answer them all on block.
I can't see any more hands.
Councillor Brown, would you like to respond to both those questions?
Yes, Chair. Just on the green waste, I think Councillor Mccartney will recall at the scrutiny panel, it was mentioned that in fact all we are able to do is to recover our actual costs. And I know that our finance director, Mr. De La Rocca, has been very diligent on this matter and ensured that we are recovering all our costs. As members note, we have very fortunate to have such a high quality individual in that role with his team. So we are in fact achieving the maximum we can out of that. I note Councillor Brown's comment on the inspection of documents, and I'll ask Mrs. De La Rocca to check that again and see which item is correct, whether the increase or the percentage, and we'll advise back to Council in due course. So I propose the motion, Chair, on fees and charges only.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. That was seconded by Councillor Rozelle. Government, can we back to a vote, please?
Sure, thank you. Councillor Ainsley?
In favour.
Councillor Councillor Beggy?
Favour.
Councillor Blanksby?
Favour.
Councillor Ball?
For.
Councillor A. Brown?
In favour.
Councillor G. Brown?
In favour.
Councillor Burrows?
In favour.
Councillor Coleman?
In favour.
Councillor Dale?
In favour.
Councillor Fox?
In favour.
Councillor Hemsley?
In favour.
Councillor Jones?
In favour.
Councillor Lowe?
In favour.
Councillor McCartney?
Abstain.
Councillor Payne?
In favour.
Councillor Powell,
In favour.
Councillor Rozelle,
In favour.
Councillor Waller,
In favour.
Councillor Walters,
For.
Councillor Webb,
In favour.
Councillor Wilby,
For.
and Councillor Woodley.
For.
Thank you. That's 21 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you, members. Thank you, governance. I would like now to hand back to our chair, Councillor Edward Baines. He says, hopefully.
Thank you. I'm now unmuted. Sorry, I'm just. I think I'm now visible as well as audible.
You are, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Councillor Beggy, for that. And so I'll now hand back to Councillor Gordon Brown to continue for the rest of item 7, which we're taking en bloc. Councillor Gordon Brown.
Thank you, Chair. So I will repeat that I'm considering that we're taking it en bloc and then dealing with it all in one go. Because there's been no change to treasury management or capital investment strategy, I don't propose to make any comments on those. Those were covered by scrutiny. So I'm going to deal with the budget papers only. Before I do that, just to mention the paper that I issued to members earlier today from Local Government Intelligence Unit. And I think it's important to note that the uncertainty and concern there is amongst finance directors generally. The key points being that the government finance system is not fit for purpose. And local government finance directors like Mr. Dilroca have concerns about fairer funding review. And I know we certainly have. Over the last year, 6% of councils have used their general reserves. And in 2018, 80% of councils used their reserves. 77% councils confirmed they'd lost confidence in the government's plan to distribute 100% of business rates and the fact that it may not actually occur. It has been put off again, and the pilots seem not to have gone well. And of course, the finance directors are still dismayed at the 4 years we've been waiting for the clear strategy on adult social care funding, and we're still no closer to that, despite it being oven ready. And then finally, 3/4 of all respondents to that report were not confident in the sustainability of government finance. And I think that's a major issue for us to consider this evening as well, moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, all a very depressing picture. And with the COVID pressures on central government finance, it's unlikely to be an early or easy answer to solving any or all of these problems, which means we must set our stall out as to how we can best match our income and expenditure while recognising that many in our community are suffering from reduced incomes, unemployment, and after today's announcement, there could be many more in a similar situation over the next few months. Turning to the main budget report, I'd like the opportunity to detail changes that have occurred since the original paper was distributed in January. And just to make sure councillors are aware, the papers that were on the web until early this afternoon, it had the wrong cabinet paper on, and that has been replaced. And I particularly draw your attention to paragraphs 2 and paragraphs 9 in the new report, in the updated report. In particular, use of reserves. Various changes to business rates means the projected deficit is now 2.4 million. In the draft budget, council was advised to take action to reduce the deficit by at least $500,000. Our finance officer has subsequently increased that to 1 million, given the government has advised there will be no increase in the overall settlement. Council tax rise. I will leave, obviously, the detailed discussion of that until item 8 on the agenda, but that is noted in the paper at 2.99%, plus 1% for the adult social care, but we'll come to that decision later. The funding settlement, as members know, there was no improvement made to the local government funding settlement from Whitehall, and therefore we're going to receive £200,000 less cash from government in the current year when compared to last year. Business rates, Estimates do indicate, however, an increase of over £200,000 in receipts due to growth in property tax, the property tax base from new businesses. And I have to note here that McDonald's were a major contributor to that. Also, existing businesses have been brought into the rating system by the Valuation Officer Agency. Although we do have a risk due to businesses seeking lower valuations caused by lower rents through the COVID impact, and something we must monitor in the year ahead. There have been no changes to spending plans in the detailed directorate budgets. Pay settlement. The pay settlement negotiations are still ongoing, with agreement unlikely to be reached by the 1st of April. The unions have submitted a claim which would increase costs by, I estimate, around 15% if it were agreed in total. But it'll be interesting to see what's said in the budget next week by Rishi, and that may clarify the position in relation to a limited pay freeze, which was first indicated in the autumn statement. Early years provisions funding has been confirmed at 536 for 2-year-old provision and 425 for 3 and 4-year-olds. And also council tax has again provided support for local council tax support claimants, to whom we paid £150 last year, and we plan to do the same again this year, and also some support for business rate losses. On the MTFP, minor adjustments have been made, amounting about 16k to align the tax base to that proposed in the council tax report. Looking at the consultation response, members are aware that in the consultation for this budget, members had a briefing on the 6th of January. We also had the scrutiny panels and a presentation of the budget to parishes in January, plus online consultation, static displays at libraries, and publicity through local print and broadcast media. The main consultation question focused on one of the big issues was understanding the source of income which the council receives and the split between council tax and government grants. 179 people responded, 96% yes, they understood the difference. Now it's interesting that this is a rise from the previous year's 99 people responding and 35 the year before that. So we appear to be getting our message out for people to respond to our consultations, slowly and gradually. Respondents were asked if they had any specific ideas about how council could save money or generate income to protect services. 118 people responded to that, and a full list of those responses are available on the website. I'd just like to draw your attention to a couple of the big items or items that were mentioned regularly. Property issues were cited by quite a few respondents, particularly in relation to CAPMAS and staff being able to continue to work from home. Another added that we should sell off property assets, although as members will know, we're unable to use capital receipt from these sales, and they're not able to be used to pay for services. A few calls for staff salaries to be cut or no pay rises awarded, with one suggesting that we withdraw the final pension salary scheme. Of course, these are dealt with in the national negotiations and not locally. The level of staffing was also cited by some as being too high and staff not having enough to do. Although I think our officers will question that over the last 12 months, and I certainly would in the work they've been doing. There was various calls for the council to stop non-essential services and do only what was mandatory or statutory. Another said we should stop 10 spending areas and do some sort of voting as to whether that should be increased or decreased. Various suggestions about efficiencies, such as underutilised bus services, closing libraries, stopping the mobile library, turning off streetlights at night, and stopping mowing verges was quoted as being unnecessary. A lot of respondents suggested lobbying government, and there was disappointment that our case had not been heard. One person said lack of government funding was an excuse for tax rises, and sadly that's not the case, as members know. So those were the key points I think that residents made. Some reference social care as being an area we should look at, and in particular we should reduce the support for the elderly or ask them to pay more, and of course again members understand that issue. On the other side of funding from government, I'm extremely disappointed, and I know that Cabinet are, in government not recognising the mistakes that have been made around new homes bonus and other funding streams. However, we're not going to give up. The leader and myself met with Alicia Cairns, our MP, last week, and we have a further meeting this coming week. And one of the routes which we are pursuing is to join together with other small authorities in a similar position to ourselves to engage with them and, more importantly, their MPs to encourage fairer settlement for small authorities, especially a fairer funding review if it comes forward at the budget, which we hope. I hope the whole chamber could actively support this approach. It's not a party political issue, it's about fairness to all our residents. Therefore, Chair, in closing, I'd like to remind members that we're setting this budget for expenditure and we're at risk of using up 2 million reserves, and that we must commit as members to work with the officers to find savings to move us towards a balanced budget for 22-23. Otherwise, we could be very close to the minimum reserves of 3 million by April 2023. I propose acceptance of these reports, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed.
Chairman, may I just come in there just to reiterate what we said earlier. You did say that you wanted to take the next two reports in turn. We can take both these reports without causing issue. I just need to remind people that the report today, the second one is the revenue budget. It includes a delegation in terms of section 151 in relation to reserves, which means you can make the decision for council tax at item 8. So if we go into debate, happy for it to go into both those reports, but we will not be making a decision or discussing council tax until item 8. Councillor Waller has a hand up. It's probably a point of order, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Waller.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Andrews, for your clarification. I will therefore say what I want to say about council tax at item 8. What I would like to say now, though, is we are not in a robust position. We are not unique. Councils up and down the country are facing what we are facing, but the national pot is what it is. And I don't think, and I'm sure Councillor Brown in his heart of hearts would agree with me, that the overall allocation for local government is going to be increased anytime soon. Whilst we might feel hard done by, and justifiably so, I would like to remind members and also inform the public who don't know this, that in the 9 or 10 years that I've been a councillor, every year our leadership has lobbied on our behalf because we have been unfairly treated, which is a result of our size, our population largely. And I just want to say that, yes, we must carry on lobbying, but I know the current leadership of Councillors Hemsley and Brown have been working tirelessly in this respect, but I'm not sure at the end of the day whether it's going to make a huge amount of difference, and we are where we are. And ultimately, and this I'm straying slightly into item 8, we will have to cut our coat according to our cloth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waller. Other members?
There are no hands, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. In that case, we will move to the vote. It has been proposed and seconded. So, Emma, if you would move into that, please.
Of course, thank you. So can I just confirm this is for both reports 161 2020 and 34 2021?
Yes, it is, Emma.
Thank you. Councillor Ainsley.
Sorry, I thought this was just for the first report. I didn't think we were doing both together.
We are doing a Treasury Management Strategy report and the revenue and capital budget. There are the items that we're taking together at this stage, Councillor Ainsley, is my understanding from the motion that was proposed.
Thank you for the clarification, in which case I'm in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
For.
Councillor.
For.
Excuse me.
Councillor Blanksby.
Abstain.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor A. Brown.
For.
Councillor G. Brown.
In favour.
Councillor Burrows.
In favour.
Councillor Coleman.
In favour.
Councillor Hemsley,
In favour.
Councillor Jones,
In favour.
Councillor Lowe,
In favour.
Councillor Mccartney,
In favour.
Councillor Oxley,
In favour.
Councillor Payne,
In favour.
Councillor Powell,
In favour.
Councillor Rozelle,
In favour.
Councillor Stevenson,
In favour.
Councillor Waller,
For.
Councillor Walters,
For.
Councillor Webb,
In favour.
Councillor Wilby,
For.
and Councillor Woodley.
For.
Thank you. That's 24 in favour and 1 abstention. Can I just seek some clarification as to who the seconder was, please?
That was right at the beginning of the debate. Could you just confirm, please, the councillor who seconded the original proposal from
Councillor Woodley.
It-
Thank you.
Councillor Woodley? Thank you. That's all sorted then, Emma?
Yes, it is, Chair.
Thank you very much. If we now move then to item 8, and I will hand over again to Councillor Gordon Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose that Council approves the formal council tax resolution as shown in Appendix A, which is a 1.99% increase in council tax, a 1% increase from the ring-fenced adult social care precept, giving a total of 2.99%. Notes no changes to the local council tax support scheme, as previously discussed, no changes to the empty town homes discount, and no change to the long-term empty homes premium. The government has maintained the general council tax referendum limit at 1.99%. However, councils are able to levy an additional social care precept of an additional up to 3%. There's flexibility in that council can levy this over 2 years. For example, councils can use 1% of that flexibility this year and 2% in the next budget year, or any combination thereof, as long as the two do not add up to more than 3% over the 2 years. Cabinet fully support the idea of 2.99% increase, made up of 1.99% precept, 1% of adult social care. So why not the 4.99% recommended by our excellent 151 officer? Well, there are a number of reasons for that. If we increase by the 4.99% this year, we can only increase by 1.99% next year, based on the current information from government. So we will be spreading the increase over 2 years, whichever way we go. And while there were discussions in scrutiny about losing 4 million over the next 5 years, that would only be correct if we agreed a zero increase this evening. That is not what is proposed. What is proposed delays just around £500,000 by 1 year, and by 2026, the gross loss of income by the council will amount to less than 0.3%, under 1%, 0.3 of 1%. The impact of local council tax support, or even the tax base, will have a much greater impact over that period. The concern of Cabinet relates to those most severely impacted by the pandemic, and they are not all on council tax support. We only have 800 homes on CTS at this point in time, compared to 16,000 homes in the county. And of course, we again will use the money we get from government to help those on local council tax support to reduce their bills by £150. But what about the other 45% below the average, and even some above the average, who are affected in this squeezed middle? They're the ones that we all must be helping to support with a 2.99% this year and 3.99% overall next year. Looking back at the consultations with residents, many disagreed the proposals to increase council tax at all, given the economic conditions and inflation rate being very low, less than 1%. There were various comments that the council was out of touch with what is nationally happening. Some respondents referred to the fact that pensions are fixed and that even 3% rise would be challenging to meet. One remark, I'll quote 2 remarks. A pensioner on a fixed income, which does not rise with inflation and savings rates near zero, any increase is a real strain to them. but the proposed increase below the government recommended 5% is really appreciated, but still difficult to live with. A 3% increase in council tax does not match expected incomes of residents. Unemployment and salary freezes are being seen this year. Finally, don't spend as much. My income is a pension. Council tax already is too high in relation to service received. It's over 20% of my income. These are our residents speaking. It is for these reasons the squeezed middle, those in financial difficulties because of COVID, taking another £500,000 out of our economy just when it's most needed by our residents, and then not spent by them in our local shops, that we are supporting the 2.99% increase as proposed. I would ask you all to come together to vote for a sensible increase this year to protect the squeezed middle in our community and keep another £500,000 to be spent in our community by our residents. Chairman, I propose the motion.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Brown. I don't think I asked for a second before you started to speak, so if someone would be prepared to second that. I saw Councillor Hemsley's hand. I'll just check with governance. Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. And so we then move into the debate.
Councillor Waller.
We've got
Councillor Waller, Chairman.
Councillor Waller, thank you.
Thank you. I would in fact like to propose an amendment to this motion. I would like to delete point 1 and replace it with the following. Approve a total council tax increase of 3.99% and amend Appendix A to reflect this.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Waller.
I paused waiting for a seconder.
Exactly my feeling. Yes. Do I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Burrows, Chairman.
Councillor Burrows. In that case, we move in to a second debate, as it were. And so, Councillor Waller, you have proposed, and you can duly speak first. Yeah.
Thank you. My reason for proposing this is that, like many other councils, we are beginning to see the long-term effect of government handing down more responsibilities to us, but reducing grant with which to deliver those responsibilities. As a result, council tax has increased while at the same time services have reduced. For example, when I first became a councillor, we had a universal youth service. Now we only offer provision to the most vulnerable and service children. We used to support Age UK offer daycare for the elderly across the county, but now this is only available in Oakham and Uppingham. And more recently, we introduced charging for green bins. This year, the government is allowing us to increase council tax by a total of 5%. And our very experienced finance officer is recommending we do precisely that. I believe we should listen to him. He is the man we pay to give us advice. The risks to us of not taking this advice is that in 2 or 3 years' time, we're likely to be having to find millions of pounds in savings as reserves will be no more. Even with the council tax increase I'm proposing tonight, we will have to find savings as we can't use reserves forever. But we need to reduce the savings we have to find as all the low-hanging fruit has gone. Savings in this context is actually a euphemism for cutting services. And to keep these cuts to a minimum, we need to take the opportunity afforded us by the Conservative government and the expectation that we take this opportunity in respect of increasing council tax. Having said that, I fully recognise the difficulties COVID and unemployment has brought to many individuals and indeed to businesses. And therefore, in this amendment, we're proposing a council tax of 3.99%, less than the maximum allowed for by government, but more than Cabinet is proposing. Further, we're recognising that a council tax of 3.99% will mean we use less of our reserves this year, allowing a greater buffer for future years to identify the service changes which will have to be made. We're being realistic and not relying on the government to change its national funding system to help Rutland, as we recognise national systems do not change to help one council. We're also being realistic in recognising the national cake for local government is not going to get any larger. So any changes to the national funding formula will be minor. No government wants big losers, especially when those losers are likely to be the very metropolitan areas its manifesto has pledged to level up. We're being realistic in recognising that there are difficult times ahead, but there's no need to make them worse by deferring the opportunity to increase the social care element of council tax. All that does is put off the inevitable and increase problems in the future. We are being realistic and recognising levying the full potential social care increase of 3% this year does not recognise the stresses caused by COVID. And so we are being pragmatic and suggesting a compromise of 2% social care council tax increasing this year, deferring 1% to next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waller.
Chairman, if I may, as Councillor Waller has moved an amendment of 3.99%, we will need to amend Appendix A. We're doing that now. It will be sent round to Councillor shortly. I think you probably received it at this point. We just need a short adjournment for members just to look through the amended Appendix A, and then we can return to the debate.
Sorry, Mark, can I just ask one clarification of Gail, please? If that's okay. Gail, you mentioned all the way through there, we. Can you clarify who we is?
Well, literally, me and my seconder.
Thank you.
Because we make the proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. If you could take us to a short adjournment.
A short adjournment, Chief Exec. Thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you. Well, Chairman, that's given 5 minutes to members to look through. No one has responded to say they need longer in my chat message, so I believe you can restart the meeting.
Thank you very much indeed. In which case we go back to the debate, and again, if members would indicate. Thank you.
Councillor Baines, we have Councillor Rizal wanting to speak.
I missed the first one, sorry.
We have Councillor Rizal wanting to speak.
Councillor Rizal, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm really delighted to be able to respond. On behalf of my residents, actually, I think the first thing to say is I cannot support the amendment. I think it borders on frightful. And I think in the words that Councillor Waller used, and I refer to them directly, realistic and pragmatic. I live every day in my ward with realistic and pragmatic. I live amongst people who have to make judgments every day on what they can and cannot afford. They don't have the luxury of reaching into a big pension pot or some cash that have been left to them. They simply don't have it. They've lost jobs. They have, in a family of 5, perhaps one person that might be lucky enough to get a small income, and the other person has nothing at all. So when I look at the percentage figures that we're playing with, all they suggest to me is that families that live very, very close to me would not be represented by this council by agreeing with the amendment. In fact, they would be ignored, and the very vocal comments they have made about poverty, real poverty, about not being able to afford the things that are important to their children, to them as a family, would be even further away based on this 1% additional rise. I think that's actually playing on the edges of what we need to do as a council. Right now, we need to look after our community, and that does mean making hard decisions. And it absolutely does mean that we need to work with our outstanding finance officer and find the cuts, the savings that we need to make as a community, but not by raising council tax to those who, frankly, in the real world, in the pragmatic world, cannot afford it. I'm opposed to the amendment entirely. I will not support it, but I'm grateful to Councillor Gordon Brown and his team for an outstanding suggestion earlier on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rizal.
Sorry, Chairman, we have Councillor Powell who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure me as an individual with my background and the people I've worked with, and I'm sure none of the members of this council would want to put up council tax to a level as such that makes living in this county increasingly unaffordable, particularly after a year of hardship that so many people have had. And I think we all fully recognise that. The original proposal on the table is 2.9%, so that's not nothing. Let's be clear about this. This is the conversation we have every year. But as a council, I think we will have to dig into our reserves which have been prudently built up. And I think it's quite right and proper that we actually utilise those reserves for this year and for, to actually support the services of the council. But we have, as Councillor Riddell says, we do have a hard balancing act to make, and a responsibility also to protect, well, to work towards protecting the financial future when we're looking at the finance figures, which the Section 151 officer has so ably put together and has made his recommendations. So it is a balancing act, and I certainly would not want to restrict beyond what we have to do, our ability to continue to provide services, particularly in the area of adult social care. And this is what the extra 1% on the precept is for. I think about 2/3 of councils are proposing a 5% increase, which is the maximum allowed. We're certainly not proposing that. There has to be a balance, and you know, on balance, I would go for the sort of middle ground, to have the extra 1% on the social care this year. So we're taking responsibility for now and for the next few years, in order to you know, really work with officers then to actually look at how the financial future of the county is protected. Every percent on council tax is hard. It's hard for residents, but I think this making this adjustment now, the 2% this year rather than 1% and then 2%, would actually make a big difference to what we're able to do going forward, and the position will hit towards 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Powell.
We have Councillor Gordon Brown next, who wants to speak.
Councillor Gordon Brown, thank you.
Chairman, as you'll probably realise, I certainly wouldn't support this motion. I'm surprised why, you know, having heard comments from councillors around the table, that 4.99%, as recommended by the finance officer, was not proposed. It seems a rather odd compromise. Also, I'm very surprised by the lack of concern from Councillor Waller in the current year for the residents. She didn't mention our residents at all in the comments she made. It was all about the financial position of the council, which I think we all understand very much. We do, I mean, there's no question of that. And the difference of £250,000 that Councillor Waller is suggesting is such a small number in relation to all the other variances we have, that I suggest it's just not appropriate. And anyway, next year, it will mean that the increase would be, let me work this out, 3% next year, 2.99% next year. So effectively, you put in the increase this year, you don't get it next year. It's not, we are not actually changing the absolute amount of money we take, we're just changing the date on which we take that money. So I'm suggesting, for the benefit of our residents, for the benefit of our community, for the benefit of our shops, that we keep that money in the community the next 12 months. Now, of course, the elephant in the room is not the £250,000 that Councillor Waller is proposing we raise in addition, but in fact it's the 2.2 million that we have to save. And I would much prefer to have a discussion about that with our residents in the coming weeks and months, how we're going to do that, what are the things that we must do, what are the things that are really important to them that they absolutely need, not want, but need. And I think those are the questions that we should be asking. So the £250,000 to me is really not the issue. It's either we have it this year or we have it next year. And the proposal which I put forward says we'll take it next year, not this year, and we'll make sure that our residents, as far as we possibly can, the fine balance between balancing money into the authorities' coffers and also retaining money with our residents. So I will certainly not be voting for this particular motion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Waller has a point of order that she wishes to raise.
Is that a point of order? Because you will have opportunity to sum up at the end of the debate, Councillor Waller.
It is a point of order. It's personal clarification, but I'll actually cover it in my summing up to make life easier.
Thank you very much indeed. That's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Beggy next.
Councillor Beggy.
Thank you, Chair. I can't vote for this amendment for a number of reasons. As Gordon said, all we're doing is moving the goalposts. And this is the year, and having been affected by COVID myself and having been unemployed for 8 months, it's now that I need the help, not next year. Now is when I want that help in the savings in the council tax. That's when people need it. This time next year, a lot of people will be back on their feet. This is a drop in the ocean. This is simply, as Gordon started off, this is to help our residents. This is simply a political posturing. You can see by those that are supporting this motion that this is a political gesture and not in favour of the residents. Residents have not been mentioned. Myself and Ian have both mentioned residents that we have spoken to, and myself personally, who have felt the impact of this crisis. This is not the time for political posturing. It is, I think, I can't think of the words. I think we need to get on, think about our residents and move forward. And please note who votes for this amendment, then you will see what I mean.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beggy.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Oxley next, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Oxley.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, interesting political posturing on behalf of the residents of Rutland. Every decision we make is on behalf of the residents of Rutland. This is the first time in the 17 years that I've been on this council that we've been asked to not vote as per the Section 151 officer's recommendation. He is the man, I believe, who is best placed to comment on how we should be increasing council tax. The Cabinet have chosen to ignore that recommendation and have come up with a recommendation of their own making. I totally, completely concur with everything that's been said with regards to the impact it may have on residents. Totally, completely understand the concerns. But those who are in the lowest income bracket will be supported. This is about ensuring that whilst we all know that we are going to be asked to make cuts to services, we haven't gone into any great detail about how we're going to do that. We're going to have to make cuts. And if we can spread the load across the wider community, then perhaps we won't need to make such deep cuts. It's only a small amount, as mentioned, £250,000 extra. And it's not about party politics. It's about investing in the future for all of the people who live in Rutland and ensuring that the services that we have at the moment, the officers that we have across the whole gamut of what we are offering to the wider community, is the impact of the cuts that the government has made in this year's budget to us is minimised to the best of the ability of this council. As I say, I support the amendment because I support the work of the officer who initially put together the report, as I have done for the last 17 years. That's the only reason. As I say, I believe that he is better placed to comment on how we should be charging council tax rather than individuals on Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oxley.
We've got Councillor Hemsley next. Councillor
Hemsley, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm interested by the comments I'm hearing with regard to Sav de la Rocca, who I hold in the highest regard. But I also understand that we are in unprecedented times and we have to work out how we can support our residents in the most effective way. And I know that Councillor Oxley suggested that there's a safety net that sits underneath the lowest paid in this county, but it's the middle people in this county who will not be supported, and just asking for that small extra bit of money, which is only 250,000, is going to hurt them much more. And if we're going to support our community, we need to take it right across the board. Now, I will continue arguing with government about whether we get fairer funding or not. That is a separate issue. But we do have to face what we need to do with our services. We need to manage them in a different way, and we will bring some cuts should we need to. But we cannot accept raising the council tax by this extra percentage, because it will not really deal with the issues we need to face. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hemsley.
We have Councillor Coleman next, please.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Chairman. I think probably when we're talking about our residents, we are absolutely duty bound to look after them. They are the people that put us where we are. And being lucky enough to sit on a parish council as well, I do always look at it as, you know, we're Rutland County Council and we're saying we're not getting enough from above, but I then see parishes having to up precepts because obviously services are cut. So in essence, sometimes, depending on the parish you live in, you do get a double whammy. What does it actually mean to somebody? So increasing it by 1% would be £3.60 a month on a Band D property where I live and £1.20 on a Band A. In the grand scheme of things, that probably doesn't sound like a lot, but to some people, I would imagine that could be the difference between whether or not they have an extra meal or something. Again, I think that RCC has communicated the percentage increase through their media channels back in January. So I wouldn't be in favour of supporting it, because I don't think it's really the dumb thing to say, this is what we're going to do, and then change it at the last minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coleman.
We have Councillor Mccartney.
Councillor Mccartney.
Thank you. Just a couple of points. It's not quite 6 of one and half a dozen of the other by taking the smaller increase now and the potential for increasing again next year. As I raised at scrutiny, there is the small impact of the compound increase which we would get if we had the larger increase now, which has been estimated at I can't quite find it. I think you never find these things when you need them, can you? I think from I've been trying to find this while this debate's been going on. I think it was around about 450,000, but Sav might correct me on that if he's in here. So that is the net loss from a smaller increase this year, and that's a loss that we can't get back. So I have spoken to quite a few of the residents in my ward, and a lot of them do understand that council tax does have to go up, and they are understanding of the council's position. So I don't think we are in quite, or rather, I don't think a lot of our residents are in quite the dire straits that has been being made out. I do sympathise. There are a lot of residents out there who are struggling, but we have measures in place to support them. So I think it is an incredibly difficult decision for me whether to support this or not. I think on balance, I would prefer to support the recommendations of the officer and take the larger increase now. So I think I will probably be voting in favour of this, but I will continue to listen to the debate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mccartney.
Can I just clarify, Councillor Ainsley, you did raise your hand. I'm not sure whether or not you wanted to speak.
Councillor Ainsley.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Yes, that I did flick that down accidentally, so well spotted. I really want to echo the thoughts that have been already said, and I feel very strongly that our residents have had a significantly hard time balancing the books during this period of this pandemic. And it seems to me that although we are talking about a 1% increase in council tax, it seems to be the wrong time to be exercising that when they're on the when they're already down. I don't believe in kicking anybody when they're down and vulnerable. So I think what I struggle with is that the actual major point that we should be bearing in mind, and I'd much rather we were debating that now, is the 2.2 million that we have to find in our savings in our services. And this does seem to be, and I'm sorry to say this, it does seem to be a bit of posturing, which I consider to be unnecessary, particularly at this very, very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you. We have Councillor Rizal next, Chair.
Councillor Rizal, I think you have already spoken on the amendment, but not for 5 minutes. As I probably didn't make it clear, you get one bite at the cherry. I will indulge you up to your 5-minute limit. Thank you.
Chair, thank you. I'm going to be really brief, actually. I was drawn to the minimal support following the officer recommendations. But of course, that isn't what is happening. The officer recommendations are not being followed at all. The very small amendment is a political gesture, and it doesn't wash on the streets of Oakham. So when you talk to a family who have 3 children, all of whom belong to a sports club, and one of those children this coming year, arguably, will now not be able to belong to that sports club, then we're talking about that's where it hits. It hits in the middle families. It doesn't hit with those who can seek support. It hits the middle families, which is the rump of Rutland. So I would urge all of the councillors tonight to think about the people of Rutland and not the political posturing and nonsense that's going on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Riddell.
We have Councillor Stevenson next.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to repeat the various arguments that have been made this evening. I would just like to be really clear. A couple of members have referenced, oh, well, the people who really need help will get help, which is absolutely right. But I'd like to be clear on the thresholds for that. So, for example, currently, for families to be eligible for the current winter maintenance grants, they need to have an income of less than £16,190. So I don't want members to be in any doubt that people who are perhaps slightly below average income, which I believe is currently 24,000, will be able to get lots and lots of financial help. The other point I would like to make is that there is an assumption that people want to ask for help. Actually, there is a considerable pride in being able to fund yourself, keep your roof over your head, your bills, your food, your family. So to assume that people of Rutland will be cheerfully thinking, oh dear, I can't afford the council tax, never mind, I'll ask for help, that's a big ask on our pride. So therefore, actually every penny does count. I think, and I say this with absolutely no disrespect to our finance officer, he has done an incredible job. Equally, I have a huge respect for Councillor Gordon Brown. Our finance director's job is to balance the books and make the money in the best way possible. Our job, members, is to look at the whole picture, and that includes everything that we provide for our residents. So for that reason, sorry, Councillor Waller, I won't be supporting your amendment, and I stick by the Cabinet recommendation of the relevant Cabinet meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. We have Councillor Walters next, please.
Thank you. Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chairman. I shan't repeat the words of Councillor Rozelle. I think they were very eloquent in expressing how many residents of Rutland feel. What I will say is that only 800 households are entitled to the local council tax support scheme. That's 800 out of 16,000 households. In other words, 95% of households in Rutland are not entitled to it. I'd also just point out we're not talking really about council tax. It's about an increase for adult social care. And as the portfolio holder for adult social care, I can say this: I cannot walk out of this door tomorrow morning, look at my neighbours and say, yes, we had to do this, because we do not have to do this. We do not have to punish them at this particular time when they are at their lowest. So I will not be supporting the amendment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Walters.
We have Councillor Oxley, although Councillor Oxley, you have already spoken.
I didn't speak for my full 5 minutes.
I was going to say I will be consistent, members. So
thank you.
Councillor Oxley, I'm not sure how much you've left in the tank, but carry on.
I just want to make the point. It's not about political posturing. It's not about nonsense, as Councillor Rozelle has said. It's called debate. I don't know if we understand what debate. Yes, debate, Councillor Rozelle. We're having a debate, understandably, because we're making a decision, a difficult decision, which is going to affect everybody in Rutland. And some of us feel that a small increase of what is proposed will help next year. That is what we are debating. And for someone to say it's nonsense actually is an insult, in my opinion, to the integrity of some of the members of this council. We are entitled to have a different opinion, and that is what we are exercising this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oxley.
And we have Councillor Powell.
Again, the same applies, Councillor Powell.
Thank you. I think my first point, and I'm sure we all want to act for the interest of residents, I think we could have a much better debate, and I don't know if it's a point to request in the future that actually we approve a revenue budget and then we look at the options for council tax rather than it being pre-released and put in the public domain and predetermined, and then we can have a proper debate. I looked at the figures without looking at the council tax increase, and my balancing act, and it's a difficult one, would have been to gone for an increase of about 3.9% roughly on my just looking at those figures. And I think that's what we should be doing rather than taking the higher moral ground of some people saying we're, you know, working for the residents or not. And I know every percentage makes a big difference, but I think we're all trying to do the best for the residents by whom we were elected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Powell.
I can't see any further hands. I assume now that we go to Councillor Waller. Oh, sorry, Councillor McCartney.
Well, Councillor McCartney's spoken already.
I'll
Sorry.
be very brief. I found Sav's email. I was just going to read out the small paragraph which explains part of what I think. A lot of it is based on assumptions, as we know. He has to make some very difficult assumptions based on limited information that he has available about potential future funding. The most likely scenario is a £600,000 funding gap over 6 years. So that's just for members' information, and that's the figure that I was basing my comments on.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCartney. Councillor Waller, if you would like to sum up.
Thank you very much, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to make my points of personal correction here. I did not say that this was realistic and pragmatic in relation to residents. I was talking about it in various points about being realistic in terms of the financial situation Rutland County Council was in. And I said it was pragmatic in relation to residents, which is picking up Mr. Brown's point, Gordon Brown's point. Why aren't we proposing the 4.99% as per officer recommendation? And that's it. The reason we aren't is because we recognise that for many residents it's going to be difficult. Even the what is in fact a £20 a year difference on Band D in most cases is going to be difficult for some. And I do understand what it's like to not have enough money. I can remember both as a child and as an adult when I first started working being hungry because I couldn't afford to buy any food. So I do know what it's like. So please don't try and imply that I'm being dismissive of residents who are in very, very difficult circumstances. I understand it perfectly well. And I did refer to residents in my opening speech, although I didn't call them residents, I called them individuals. But it's still about people. So those are my personal things. Now, in terms of summing up the debate, this isn't about political posturing. This is about doing what is right for Rutland in the long term. Councillor McCartney made the point about the cumulative effect. If we don't put the increase in now, it doesn't become part of our base. So we're always, in a sense, making catch up. It's the compound interest argument. We are in a very, very difficult position. We can't bank on what might happen in the future. We are being advised to go for the maximum. We haven't, in this amendment, totally taken that advice simply because of the impact on individuals. But we do feel we need to get nearer to it, because next year, whilst we'll have the other part of the social services increase that we can put in, we don't know what the government's going to be saying to us, and they could be saying you can go for a 5% increase on council tax, plus another 2% on social care. We just don't know. So we could be facing in 12 months' time a significant increase, far more than we are now. And finally, the fact that we consulted on a figure, or the Cabinet recommended a figure to consult on, should not fetter any decision that we make tonight. Otherwise, what is the point of having this meeting if Cabinet's decision on what we were consulting on is the final decision? There is no point in discussing it tonight. Consultation is precisely that, it's to get views. And we are free to vote however we want this evening. It's difficult for us all. I would prefer a 0 increase in council tax. I would prefer to cut it, but we can't. We're not in that position. And therefore, as I said at the beginning, I'm proposing a compromise position of 3.99%. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wally. I think we can now move to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is voting for the amendment. Councillor Ainsley?
Against.
Councillor Baines?
Against.
Councillor Beggy?
Against.
Councillor Blanksby? Sorry?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Bull?
Against.
Councillor A. Brown?
Abstain.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that one.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon Brown?
Against.
Councillor Burrows?
For.
Councillor Coleman?
Against.
Councillor Dale?
Against.
Councillor Fox?
Against.
Councillor Hemsley?
Against.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor Lowe?
Against.
Councillor McCartney?
For.
Councillor Oxley?
For.
Councillor Payne?
Against.
Councillor Powell?
For.
Councillor Rozelle? Councillor Rozelle?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Against.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson?
Against.
Councillor Waller?
For.
Councillor Walters?
Against.
Councillor Webb?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Wilby?
Against.
And Councillor Woodley?
Against.
Thank you, Chair. That's 6 for, 16 against and 3 abstentions. Therefore,
Thank you very much indeed. So the amendment falls. We go back to debating the main proposal. If anyone else wishes to speak on that.
I can see no hands up at the moment, Chair.
Thank you. I think we have had a very thorough debate, and I would like to say from the chair, the odd remark has been made about the motivation in bringing it. I don't speculate on that at all. Like Elizabeth I, I have no windows into men's souls. But thank you for the debate. We'll now move to the vote on the substantive motion. And again, I would say from the chair, I think all members are quite entitled to have a view and to express it. So long as it's done in a civilized way, I have no difficulty with that at all. So if we may move to the debate, please, to the vote, sorry.
Thank you. So this is voting for the substantive motion. Councillor Ainsley?
For.
Councillor Baines?
For.
Councillor Beggy? Councillor Blanksby,
Abstain.
Councillor Ball,
For.
Councillor A. Brown,
Abstain.
Councillor Gordon Brown,
In favour.
Councillor Burrows,
Abstain.
Councillor Coleman,
For.
Councillor Dale,
For.
Councillor Fox,
For.
Councillor Hemsley,
In favour.
Councillor Jones,
Abstain.
Councillor Lowe,
In favour.
Councillor Mccartney,
I'll abstain.
Councillor Oxley,
Abstain.
Councillor Payne,
In favour.
Councillor Powell,
Abstain.
Councillor Rozelle,
In favour.
Councillor Stevenson,
In favour.
Councillor Waller,
Abstain.
Councillor Walters,
For.
Councillor Webb,
Abstain.
Councillor Wilby,
In favour.
and Councillor Woodley.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's 16 in favour and 9 abstentions.
And that is duly carried. And thank you very much indeed. Before I move on to the next item on the agenda, I would just like to thank Councillor Gordon Brown. Some of us have disagreed with him at some points over the year. Others disagreed a lot of the time. But I don't think any of us can doubt the amount of effort, expertise that he's brought to this aspect of the council's work. Tremendously hard work, and I would like to thank him on your behalf, and also to the officers he's worked with. Despite what has been said about whether or not the 151 officer is listened to or not, he was listened to. They have worked in collaboration, and as I say, I would like to put on record our thanks to Councillor Gordon Brown, and also a relief that we are not losing his expertise entirely. We may not be working quite so hard, but we can still turn to that area when we need it. So having said that, thank you. We now move to item 9, and I have been informed that there are no further business under that item. So just before 8:30, I therefore declare the meeting closed, and thank you very much for your attendance. Good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good night.
Good, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Chair.